Hi, and welcome to the last workshop in our July Jumpstart Summer Series. As we get started today, let's be honest about something that most professional development sessions completely ignore. Today's students are living in a world of constant stimulation, instant gratification, and endless entertainment options. Their brains are literally wired differently than previous generations. This isn't about competing with social media or trying to turn your classroom into an entertainment center. It's about understanding a fundamental truth. This generation needs to be intellectually and emotionally invested before they'll participate meaningfully. Full stop. I remember the exact moment this clicked for me. I was teaching the same World War II lesson I taught a dozen times before, but this time I applied the engagement framework. Instead of explaining the concept, I let the students encounter it through structured discovery. The energy in the room was completely different. Students who normally checked out were leaning in. Kids were making connections I hadn't even anticipated. And here's what really excited me. It actually took less time to plan once I understood the system. Because when you know exactly how to structure these moments of discovery, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Think about your most challenging unit to teach. The one where you typically lose student interest. Now imagine the students walking in already curious about what they'll discover. Discussions that naturally flow because students are genuinely invested. Assessment becoming easier because students have truly engaged with the content. And having more energy because you're not constantly fighting for attention. The best compliment I ever received was from a 10th grade student who looked at me one day as I had them creating vokies to summarize what we had just learned, and looked at me and said, "This class is amazing. We never know what we're walking into when we get here." And yes, that was the point. This is not about adding more to your plate. It's about transforming what you're already teaching in a way that works better for both you and your students. I've seen this work across every subject area, grade level, and teaching style. I've had young elementary teachers saying, "I don't know how this is going to work," and then come back to me and say, "This is incredible." Because while the specific activities might look different in a first grade classroom versus a high school physics lab, the principles of engagement remain the same. This is exactly why I'm going to show you today how to execute the first day learning launch. With this system, instead of starting with procedures and rules on the first day, students walk into a carefully crafted experience that immediately engages their natural curiosity, critical thinking, and intrinsic motivation. Now, you might be thinking, but I need to cover classroom procedures, review the syllabus, and get to know my students on that first day. There's just no way to make that engaging. Now, here's what makes the first day learning launch so powerful. It accomplishes all of this, but in a way that actually engages this generation of students. Think about traditional first day activities. Students might fill out an all about me worksheet that often feels forced. We review rules and procedures while students zone out. Everyone takes turns sharing summer stories that half the class doesn't listen to. The syllabus gets stuffed into folders, largely unread. But with the learning launch, these same essential elements are woven into an experience that feels natural and purposeful. Instead of reading rules, students discover your expectations through carefully designed station activities. When they naturally collaborate, ask questions, and engage with the materials, they're experiencing your classroom culture rather than just hearing about it. Rather than filling out generic getting to know you forms, students reveal their thinking styles, interests, and personalities through their interactions with the learning stations. You'll learn far more about them by observing how they approach challenges, work with others, and what catches their attention. That syllabus, its key elements are embedded within the station materials. Students uncover important course themes, major projects, and class procedures as part of their exploration. When they piece it together themselves, they're far more likely to remember and buy into it. Students naturally move through the room in small groups, examining these items. They're recording their observations, making predictions, asking questions. Without realizing it, they're already engaging in the kind of thinking you want to see all year. Critical analysis, evidence-based reasoning, collaborative discussion, natural curiosity. What's happening in this moment is profound. Instead of being told what to expect, they're discovering it. Instead of receiving rules, they're experiencing the culture you want to create. They're not just hearing about your class, they're actively participating in it. And the best part is that the students don't feel like they're being processed through first day procedures like they are every year. Instead, they're actively engaged in meaningful learning from the very first minute, setting the tone for everything that follows. So let me share how I actually set this up in my own classroom. Instead of starting with the usual "let me tell you about myself" speech, I created a mystery station with 5 carefully chosen items from my life. There on the table, students found a tiny worn baby shoe that now barely fits my son's finger. Next to it, a half-empty bag of dog treats. I included a boat racing magazine, complete with highlighted passages and dog-eared pages. There was also a concert ticket stub that meant the world to me, and a unique seashell I collected from my favorite beach. As my students moved between these items in small groups, I watched something magical happen. Without any prompting, they started piecing together theories about who I was. They noticed the baby shoe and wondered about my journey as a parent. They debated whether I liked boats or actually raced them. They assumed the concert ticket just meant I liked live music, but I would subtly shake my head every time, which got them really brainstorming, creating their own narrative about what it could mean. What struck me most was their genuine curiosity. These weren't students grudgingly participating in another first day activity. They were investigators piecing together clues about their teacher's life. When I finally shared the real stories behind each item, having 2 sons, my rescue dogs, my husband being a 3rd-generation boat racer, that transformative concert experience that rekindled the relationship with my husband, which is a love story I would slowly piece together over the school year, and my absolute love of the beach. They were genuinely invested in the revelations. I want you to take a moment in your workbook and jot down a few items that you could use to introduce your new students to who you are as a person. Let them see that you are a human being with a real life outside of school. Seeing you as a person is the first step to this engagement piece. Now think about your rules and procedures. But instead of listing out the typical "don't do this, don't do that," write down how you want your classroom to feel. What kind of learning environment do you want to create? When students walk in, what energy do you want them to experience? This shift from rules to atmosphere is crucial because when students feel connected to the space and understand its purpose, they naturally align with the procedures that support that vision. Take a minute to write these thoughts down. Really envision how this could transform your first day, your first week, and ultimately your entire school year. Now let's get creative about how we can transform these rules and procedures into engaging discovery stations. Instead of standing at the front of the room reading through a syllabus, imagine students actively discovering your classroom culture. For example, you could create a communication corner where students explore different scenarios and discover when it's appropriate to, say, raise their hand versus when they can freely collaborate with peers. Or set up a materials mission where students figure out through hands-on exploration how to efficiently collect and return supplies. Maybe they time each other and problem solve the most effective system as a team. Think about your own classroom. What procedure could you turn into an engaging station that lets students discover the why behind your systems? Take a moment to brainstorm 2 or 3 procedures you could transform into discovery stations. If your classroom is one-to-one and you want to make this digital, there is a way that you can do that. I'm actually going to put in a video that I have made once before for a different workshop where I was explaining the same process so you can see how you can make a self-checking form for this activity. Doing it in Google Sheets can also turn it into a self-checking assignment, and this is something that you can use in any subject area for any assignment, so it's something that you might want to take note of because it's very popular right now and the kids really, really enjoy it, and it's very, very engaging. So the first thing that you would do here, and you can decide, do you want a different artifact on different sheets or do you want them all continuing on one sheet? I'm just going to do one and then you can decide what you think would work best for you. But the first thing you would do is go ahead and make whatever box that you're going to use bigger. So we're going to clean this up in a minute, but here's a very large box to be able to put something in. I like adding borders to it to make sure that it stands out. You would then go to Insert, Image, Image in Cell. Okay, browse. Go ahead and pull up the photo that you're interested in using, okay? And then from here, I like to just make sure everything is nice and centered, okay? Then underneath, you can write, what it is, the question that you're looking for. So what does this represent? All right, go ahead and copy it, and you're gonna see why in just a second, okay? But I like to, again, put a border around that, center it in here. You can change the font to something a little bit nicer. You can make the font a little bit bigger, so on and so forth. Now, this is the part that gets into self-checking. So you're going to right click and you're going to go to conditional formatting. And it's going to come up with various rules that you can come up with, and I'm going to show you some very basic things. So right now we're working on B4 because it's the column B and the row 4. So this is the particular box that we are working in. So the first thing is, if it is empty, you can make it, we'll just use a nice pale yellow, okay? And also, if the text is exactly, and that's where you're going to go ahead and paste in what you wrote there, you will also make it that same color yellow. All right, so even if the kids just delete this and move along, it's going to stay yellow, which means they have something to do. Now, you'll go in again, add a rule, same one. If the text contains, for me, I'm going to write beach. If they have anything about beach whatsoever, it will be correct. And we're going to change it to green because everybody knows green means go. You can make it whatever color scheme you want, but this just seems to make sense. Okay, so if they go and change that to anything that has to do with the beach, it will turn green. And on the flip side, if it does not contain the word beach, it will change it to red. All right, so right now, what does this represent? If that's there, it's yellow. If the kids go in and they delete that, it's still yellow. If they go in and they're like, Mrs. B collects shells, and they think that that's it, boom, it comes up red. So they have to think about it again. Mrs. B likes the beach. Boom, it's now green. So they know once it turns green, they can move on. So you can add in the top cell here what the directions are. You can add it in. If you want things to spread further, if you're not aware, you can actually merge all of these together. So it's one nice thing. So we'll just say, for this assignment, fill in what you think each artifact represents. Okay, so you see how it kind of continues on over here into a different cell. If you highlight both of them and then you go to Format, Merge Cells, Merge All, those are now all one cell. Okay, so as you change your text, as you change your size, okay, it all sticks together, and you just have to, stretch that out. Okay, so from here, you would just continue that on for as many as you need. So if you want to have them all on one sheet, cool. If you want to go ahead and make each one different ones so they know as they get green, they can move on to the next tab, you would just add a plus sign down here, sheet 2, and then continue on here. If you do want to clean this up a little bit, so say I'm just going to copy and paste this. You don't want to copy and paste because it does mess up the formatting a little bit. These will still be the same no matter what, but if you notice, it's adding B4 and D4. Now it's having the same rules for both. And if you go to edit the ones for this one, it's going to edit the ones for this one as well. So you just want to make sure that you do the rules separate each time you go. From here, if you do want to clean this up, nobody needs all of these extra rows. You can go ahead and highlight all of these, right click, delete columns. All right, highlight across, and then these go pretty far. So you can go ahead and scroll all the way down to the bottom, shift, click all of them, and then delete rows, and you'll see that it's nice and cleaned up. So again, you would format them, clean them up, make them look nice, and then you can share them individually through email. You could share them on Google Classroom, however you normally share digital type assignments. Remember, when students discover the purpose behind procedures rather than just hearing rules, they are much more likely to buy in and follow them throughout the year. Now imagine doing something like this as the introduction for your first unit. Imagine your students walking in to find strategically placed learning stations around the room. For a science teacher, maybe it's a mysterious rock formation, a newspaper article about a recent discovery, and a letter from a local environmental scientist. For English, perhaps it's a powerful poem fragment, a compelling image, and a provocative question written in beautiful calligraphy. Here's the thing. While the first day learning launch might be more elaborate than something you would do day to day, you can capture the same spirit of discovery and engagement every single day. It doesn't have to require multiple stations or complex setups. Sometimes it's as simple as placing a single compelling artifact on each group's table before students enter, starting class with an unexpected image projected on the screen, having students encounter a thought-provoking quote written on the board, playing a short audio clip that seems unrelated until students make the connection. The key is that students aren't passively receiving information. They're encountering it in a way that sparks natural curiosity. They're asking questions before you've even introduced the topic. They're making predictions, drawing connections, and investing in the learning before it formally begins. Sometimes it's as straightforward as presenting the context through an unexpected lens, or starting class with a single powerful prompt that sparks curiosity. The magic isn't in the complexity of the setup, but how you invite students to engage with the learning. But here's where many teachers get stuck. They try this once or twice, see the amazing engagement it creates, but then fall back into traditional teaching patterns. Why? Because they get stuck in a mentality that they need to transform every lesson into an engaging experience like this. They start looking at the school year from a macro lens and begin panicking. How do I create these hooks for every concept? What if my curriculum doesn't seem to lend itself to discovery? How do I maintain this level of engagement without exhausting myself? What about the pressure to cover content and prepare for tests? These are exactly the questions I wrestled with when I first started transforming my teaching. What I discovered is that there's a systematic way to create these engaging moments every day, no matter what subject or concept you're teaching. It's not about reinventing every lesson. It's about understanding the fundamental principles that make learning irresistible to our current students. Let me share what I discovered after years of trial and error. The most engaging teachers aren't necessarily the ones putting on the biggest show every day. Instead, they understand how to weave moments of discovery and connection into every lesson, no matter how simple or complex the content. Think about what we're planning for your first day learning launch. When you put this together and see how students respond, and they will respond, it won't be because of the physical items you've displayed. The magic will happen because you're tapping into fundamental principles of engagement. Students encounter something unexpected. They have space to form their own questions. They make personal connections to the material. They collaborate naturally with peers. They feel safe to explore and hypothesize. You're creating an environment where curiosity is natural, where discovery feels inevitable, and where students can't help but lean in to learn more. These principles can transform any lesson. For example, before teaching states of matter, create a mystery sensory station where students explore ice that's been colored with food dye, watching it melt into water and eventually evaporate, leaving color traces behind. Beginning fractions by having students try to share unequal pizza slices made from paper, leading them to realize the need for equal parts. Introducing Romeo and Juliet with a collection of current celebrity feuds and family conflicts, letting students discover universal themes. Beginning an economics unit with seemingly unrelated current news headlines that are all connected to supply and demand. The key is creating situations where students encounter puzzling or intriguing scenarios that naturally lead them to ask questions about the upcoming content. When they're invested in finding answers, the actual learning becomes much more meaningful. But here's the challenge that stopped me in my tracks when I first started. How do you systematically create these engaging moments without spending hours planning each lesson? How do you maintain this level of student investment when you're juggling multiple preps and standards and testing requirements? This is exactly why teachers need to understand how to tap into the intrinsic motivation of Generation Alpha and the overflow of Generation Z. Not because teachers don't know how to engage students, we do, but because we need a systemic approach to creating these moments of engagement consistently without burning ourselves out. It's about having a framework that helps you identify natural hooks in any content, create discovery moments that align with standards, build student independence through structured exploration, maintain high engagement without exhausting yourself. You deserve to experience the joy of teaching without the constant drain of trying to maintain student attention. You deserve to walk into your classroom energized rather than exhausted, knowing that you have a clear system for creating engaging lessons that practically run themselves. Imagine creating subplans where the students already know what they need to do because it's something that they've already been working with. All of this is because when students are naturally drawn into learning, you can focus on what you do best, actually teaching, instead of constantly managing behavior or fighting for engagement. Think about it. What if your planning time could be spent on creative ways to spark curiosity instead of trying to figure out how to keep students on task? What if you could end each day fulfilled by meaningful teaching moments and instead of drained by the constant struggle for attention? That's not just better for your students, it's essential for your own well-being and longevity in this profession. Teaching shouldn't feel like an uphill battle. You deserve a sustainable approach that brings back the joy and purpose that drew you to education in the first place. And let me share what makes this approach sustainable, because that's what really matters. When you understand the framework, you'll start seeing opportunities for engagement everywhere. That dense chapter on photosynthesis, instead of lecturing about it, imagine students discovering the process themselves by investigating plants near windows growing differently than those in darker corners, testing leaves for starch content in various conditions, and piecing together the puzzle of how plants create their own food. Suddenly, they're not just memorizing a process, they're uncovering it like scientists. That seemingly dry grammar lesson, instead of drilling rules, imagine students becoming language detectives, analyzing text messages gone hilariously wrong due to misplaced commas, or discovering why a viral meme works because of its perfect punctuation placement, or debating whether AI-generated sentences follow proper grammar rules. Suddenly, they're not just memorizing rules, they're uncovering the power of precise communication and how it shapes meaning in their everyday lives. You know what I consistently hear from teachers who have made this shift? This is how I always wanted to teach, but I didn't know how to make it sustainable. And I completely understand. While these engagement strategies are powerful, trying to figure them out on your own every day can feel overwhelming. It's like having all the ingredients for an amazing meal, but no recipe to follow. And that's exactly why I documented every step of what works in real classrooms today. Not theory, not what should work, but what actually works when you're juggling 150 students, state standards, limited planning time. And I know where you are right now. You understand your students need more than traditional instruction. You've experimented with various engagement strategies. You've probably had some lessons that were absolute home runs. But creating this experience consistently feels daunting. Now imagine having a clear roadmap that shows you exactly how to structure discovery moments for any content, go-to strategies that work across grade levels and subjects, how to maintain engagement without exhausting yourself, ways to meet standards while keeping students genuinely invested. And the best part, this approach actually makes teaching more enjoyable for both you and your students. You'll spend less time managing behavior and more time facilitating genuine learning moments that remind you why you chose this profession in the first place. I've put together everything I learned from when I was figuring it out in the classroom and now working with thousands of teachers who have made this transformation. Because while that first day learning launch is powerful, it's just the beginning of what's possible in your classroom. But before I share more about the specific framework, I want you to make a choice because right now you are at a crossroads. You can continue with traditional teaching methods, reading the syllabus, going through textbook chapters, fighting for student attention. You already know where this path leads: burned out teachers and disengaged students. Or you can choose to transform your classroom into a place where students can't wait to learn, where engagement isn't something you have to force, and where you finally get to teach the ways you've always wanted to. The choice is yours. But before you decide, let me be clear about something. This isn't about throwing out everything you know. It's not about creating elaborate lessons every day. And it's definitely not about adding more to your already full plate. So here's what I've done. I've taken everything I learned from transforming my own classroom, plus what I've discovered working with thousands of teachers just like you, and created a step-by-step implementation system called the Classroom Reset. The Classroom Reset isn't just another professional development program throwing more tasks on your plate. It's a complete system designed by teachers for teachers who understand what it's really like in today's classrooms. Inside, you discover how to shift student behavior without constant redirecting or raising your voice. Simple, low-budget ways to transform your classroom into an engaging space that practically runs itself. Time-saving systems that give you your life back while actually improving student outcomes. Proven strategies to protect your energy and rediscover your love of teaching. And the best part? Everything inside is designed for the real world, where budgets are tight, time is limited, and perfect conditions don't exist. Teachers who implement these strategies report fewer behavior issues within the first week. Students who seem suddenly switched on and engaged. More free time, yes, seriously, and a renewed sense of confidence and purpose. While similar professional development programs cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, I've priced the Classroom Reset at just $79 to help me keep the platform running, because I believe every teacher deserves access to these transformational tools. You get lifetime access to all 5 modules inside, plus ready-to-use bonuses that will save you countless hours of prep time. And do you know what's interesting? I recently asked teachers how much they're spending on their classrooms each year, and most said between $200 and $1,000 just on basic supplies and decorations. That's their own money spent hoping to create an engaging environment for their students. What if you could invest just a small fraction of that, $79, into a system that not only transforms your classroom, but also saves you money, time, and stress in the long run? Now, this isn't another collection of activities you have to try to squeeze into your day, or a theoretical approach that sounds good but doesn't work in real classrooms today, or one more thing to add to your overwhelming to-do list, or a complete overhaul of everything you're already doing well. Instead, it's a practical roadmap that shows you exactly how to transform your existing lessons into discovery experiences, create sustainable engagement that doesn't depend on you being on all the time, build student independence while maintaining classroom structure, or make the shift without sacrificing standards or your sanity. Before you decide if this process is right for you, I want to share something that really hit home for me when I was struggling in my own classroom. I realized I was spending hours creating lesson plans that students would just tune out. Countless Sunday nights trying to figure out how to just make Monday morning work. I was wasting precious family time recovering from exhaustion from the previous week and the mental energy worrying about student motivation and how to just get through the year. Think about your own classroom. How much time did you spend last year trying to get students' attention, creating new ways to present the same material, taking work home because you couldn't get it done at school, worrying about reaching every student? But more importantly, what's the real cost of that Sunday night anxiety about Monday morning? Taking student disengagement personally, missing quality time with family because you're just too exhausted, or losing your passion for teaching. You've already invested so much in your students. Maybe it's time to invest in a system that actually works. No pressure, no gimmicks, just practical information so you can decide if this approach might work in your classroom. Because ultimately, this isn't about me or my program. It's about you finding a sustainable way to teach that brings back the joy and effectiveness you know is possible. Let me bring this full circle. Think about that spark of excitement you felt earlier as we talked about the first day learning launch. That moment when you started envisioning your classroom transformed into a space of discovery, seeing your students' faces light up as they walk in, imagining their natural curiosity taking over. Did you notice how your own energy shifted just now thinking about it? How planning suddenly felt less like a chore and more like creating something meaningful? That's exactly how lesson planning could feel every single day of this upcoming school year. So again, you're standing at a crossroads right now. You can continue with the traditional approach, fighting for attention and ending each day just utterly, totally exhausted. Or you can transform your classroom into a place where every lesson carries that same spark of excitement that you just felt. Students drive their own learning through discovery. Your energy goes into actual teaching instead of behavior management. You wake up excited to implement your lesson plans, but the choice is yours. Remember, you didn't become a teacher to be a content delivery system, and that's not what's working for our Google-fied students anymore anyway. You became a teacher to make a difference, to spark curiosity and to transform lives. The Classroom Reset gives you the framework to do exactly that in a way that's sustainable, practical, and proven to work. That excitement you felt while planning the first day learning launch, that could be your everyday teaching experience. Because the classroom you've always dreamed of creating, it's absolutely possible. And I'd be honored to show you how to make it happen. You didn't choose teaching to feel burned out and overwhelmed. Let's get you back to making the impact you always dreamed of. I hope you take a look when you're ready, because you deserve it. Thanks so much for joining me for the past 3 weeks. I hope you really got something out of it and you are excited for this school year to come. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care.